Hey everybody, it's GauntletX and welcome back to another premiere draft of Core Set 2021. So let's just get into the draft, see what we open, make a good deck, hopefully. Alright, so we've got a pretty nice rare in this opening pack, and it's probably what I'm just going to go with. Radha Heart of Keld, 1 in a red and a green for a 3/3 Elf Warrior. First strike during your turn, you can look at the top card of your library at any time and play lands from the top of your library, and for 6 mana she gets +X until end of turn, where X is the number of lands you control, so she's incredibly difficult to beat. Once you've hit 6 mana, she attacks as a 9/9 first strike minimum. The first strike is just so powerful, they basically have to block it with like 18 power and toughness to kill her, because otherwise you can just first strike away a big mass of their blockers. So she just has to be chump blocked over and over once you hit the late game, and even before you hit the late game she gives you a lot of value if you just always play the lands when they're on top of your deck. It's kind of like drawing extra cards. So Radha, just an incredibly powerful limited card. I would love to wheel something like a Fierce Empath that goes really well in the same kind of deck. Red-green ramp is a pretty viable strategy. If not that, some of these commons like Truffle Snout and Sabertooth Mauler would be fine in a deck with a Radha in it. So the second pack is a little bit awkward just because there's not much going for us in red and green. There's only 2 red-green cards, neither of which are all that exciting. Track Down's decently playable. 2 mana, scry 3, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature or land, you get to draw that card. Not really worth second picking. It almost certainly won't be in the pack by the time that this wheels, just because anybody looking for green cards is just going to take a Track Down. Destructive Tampering, though, is almost unplayable. You can make it so creatures without flying can't block this turn, so this could end the game, but it's for a very specific situation, and if you draw it at the wrong time, it's just a dead draw throughout the entire game. So nothing really in our colors, and if there's nothing in our colors, maybe we move on to what is the best card for any other strategy here, and I'm pretty interested in the Watcher of the Spheres as just the best card in this pack. 2 mana for a 2/2 flyer makes all of your flyers cost 1 less to cast, and whenever a creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, it gives the Watcher of the Spires +1/+1 until end of turn. So really good for a white-blue flyers deck. It's really unlikely we're gonna straight up switch into white-blue flyers, but since the red and green cards in that pack are so weak, we might as well take that just in case we get completely cut out of the Radha deck. And this pack has good stuff for the Radha deck. It's going to be a pretty difficult pick here too, because Hunter's Edge is really nice, and you want to take these pretty highly if you're in green, because I've seen these getting picked up so quickly in these drafts with human players that they just never go that late, just because green removal is so hard to come by. In red-green, I think you might be able to take it a little bit later, just because red has a lot of damage-based removal you can pick up instead. But between Colossal Dreadmaw, Warden of the Woods, just these big, powerful, large creatures that are at the top end of your curve, you can usually, there's just so many interchangeable versions of these that you can usually just get them later in the draft. So I'm going to take Hunter's Edge. It just feels like the kind of card that's definitely less replaceable overall. For the same reason, I think I'm going to take Furious Rise in this pack. There's only 3 cards I'm interested in playing. Run Afoul is not the kind of card I like to play main deck. There are definitely several decks in this format that you will play against that will just never have a flyer, so this can be a dead draw sometimes. So between Furious Rise, which basically draws you a card every turn if you have a creature with power 4 or greater, Igneous Cur, which is a 2 mana 1/2 that you can dump a bunch of mana in to make powerful, and Ranger's Guile, which is just a little bit of a combat trick and a little bit of kind of a removal spell, counter spell. Like, if they try to remove one of your creatures, you can use this to counter that, basically. Between all 3 of these cards, I'm just going to take Furious Rise, because this card can potentially give you so much card advantage throughout the game, similar to Radha, where you could potentially be just drawing and playing an extra card every turn. That's just immensely powerful. And I'm very surprised to see Llanowar Visionary still in this pack. This is my favorite green card in the entire set. That doesn't mean that I pick it higher than every other green card in the set, like I take Elder Gargaroth higher than Llanowar Visionary. I just like this card so much. 3 mana for a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, it draws a card, so even if it dies immediately, you've gotten a fresh card out of it to replace it, and it taps for a green mana, so it ramps into your Colossal Dreadmaws, it ramps into your Radha's ability, your Warden of the whatever, that big tree folk guy that we saw earlier. Just a fantastic card. So I'm definitely going to take Llanowar Visionary out of that pack. Now we can take a red-green dual land. Just mana fixes us, gains a life when it comes into play. Just a nice, decent card in this deck. Other than that, it would be a Goblin Arsonist. I'm not particularly interested in that in red-green. In red-green, the strategy is definitely big creatures. You have a lot of cards like Furious Rise. There's a Garruk's like green enchantment version of this where you draw a card when you play power 4 or greater creatures. So yeah, there's definitely multiple cards in green-red that care about 4 power greater creatures. You're not really in it for the little cards like Goblin Arsonist, but this is a fine card in other red decks. Not really into pump spells that much. I just never have been in limited. I know they are definitely good in limited. Lots of people play them, so it's between the Highlands and the Fungal Rebirth, and Fungal Rebirth is a little weird to me. I've literally never played the card, so I'm not sure how I feel about it in its entirety, but I know that I like Rugged Highlands, so that just makes it an easier pick for me without having to melt my brain or flip a coin between the two or anything. So this pack, I can pick up a Colossal Dreadmaw, get one of our 6 mana late game bombs, but as I said before, you can usually get a lot of those late, and Thrashing Brontod on 3 mana 3/4 is just so powerful on curve. However, we already have 3 really good 3 mana cards, so I don't know if I want to fill up my 3 mana stuff first or my 6 mana stuff first. I think probably 3. I don't know. I feel like these Dreadmaws are going to go later than stuff like Brontodon. Brontodon is just a premium, uncommon 3-drop creature. And there are a lot of red cards in this pack, but again, they're not exactly the kind of cards I'm looking for in red-green. A lot of stuff that would be good for red-blue. Red-blue's clearly open because there's also the red-blue duel. So Goblin Wizardry would be really good in red-blue. If you don't know, red-blue in this format has a lot of prowess, stuff that cares about casting a lot of non-creature spells each turn. So cheap instants and sorceries that like draw a card, like Crash Through, are pretty good in those decks. Goblin Wizardry is great in those decks. Thrill of Possibilities, fine. It looks like the auto picker's just going to go for Goblin Wizardry. I'm fine with that. I think Tormenting Voice might be a little better in this deck just because we can discard a land when we're in the late game to draw 2, but I'm probably not going to play either of those cards. And Fierce Empath did wheel, which is really exciting, as did Truffle Snout. Both of these are really good cards. Truffle Snout is basically a 3 mana 3/3 in this deck. Sometimes, if you need to, you can gain the 4 life if you're really getting beaten up, or if you're in like green-white and you have some stuff that cares about gaining 3 or more life in a turn, you can trigger it that way. But in this deck, Truffle Snout would just be a 3 mana 3/3 versus Fierce Empath. It is only a 3 mana 1/1, but it grabs you a creature with mana cost 6 or greater from your deck, puts it into your hand, so it sets you up for the late game. Just the second you play that Fierce Empath. I like the card a lot. And Track Down is still in this pack, so this pack wheeled. Every red and green card that was in the pack initially is still in the pack, so that's a good sign for us. But it could also be that we're drafting against good players, and the red and green cards in this pack are not very good. But I will definitely take the Track Down at this point. Gnarled Sage still in this pack with only 5 cards left. That is a pretty good sign for me, because it is a green creature with power 4 or greater, so it's straight up what our strategy is looking for and in our colors. Goblin Arsonists, I wouldn't care if these Goblin Arsonists disappeared, because that doesn't necessarily mean there's other people in red-green type strategies. It would be a lot more of a sign that there's people in red-black with a lot of sacrifice outlets to use that Goblin's death ability, or people in just red-white, just really aggressive red decks. So we wouldn't really be taking the same kinds of cards, even if we're in the same color. And the fact that Dowsing Tyrannodon is still in this pack with only 3 cards left makes me very happy, because this is exactly what my strategy is. This is a 2 mana 3/3 defender. As long as you control a creature with power 4 or greater, it can attack as though it didn't have defender. So at the start of the game, it's just a 2 mana 3/3 that can only block, which is fine. It blocks things for a while, gets you ready to survive until the late game to cast your big stuff, and then once you can cast your big stuff, you just have another 3/3 on the board attacking. So this card's actually a pretty decent common for the green-red deck, and seeing it with only 3 cards in the pack total means that I'm pretty sure green-red's open here, which makes me very happy. Now, this is going to be a controversial pick to some of you, maybe, but I am 100% just going to take Llanowar Visionary again. The card is just so good, ramps us into our high mana cost cards, as well as drawing a card when it comes into play, so it replaces itself immediately. I'm going to take that over Azusa, because Azusa, while she does ramp you. She doesn't give you any form of card advantage. She just plays the lands that you have in your hand immediately. By the time you play her, you probably only have 1 or 2 lands in your hand anyway. If you're in a position where you can play Azusa and have 2 additional lands in your hand, I think you're just losing that game because you're casting Azusa on turn 3. You've already played 3 lands. Now you're playing 2 more lands from your hand. So by the time you're playing Azusa, you probably have 4 cards in your hand maximum. If 2 of those are lands, you're dumping them on the field. Now you only have like 2 cards left total maximum against your opponent who probably has like 5 cards in hand. So I don't even think Azusa's that good in limited. So here we can take a Quirion Dryad. This card's definitely fine in a 2-color deck. It's a 2-mana 1/1, but it gets a +1/+1 counter whenever you play a non-green spell. So anytime we're playing red stuff, she gets a counter, so she can get pretty big pretty quickly. We could also take a Sabertooth Mauler. I guess we can see what we have at 4 mana. We don't really have any 4 mana creatures. We do already have some 2 mana drops, and I do think Sabertooth Mauler fits in our deck a little bit better. We don't have a lot of red cards. We do want a lot of non-green stuff to really go off with the Dryad. Or you'd like to be in a green-white deck where you have cards that care about your cards with +1/+1 counters on them. I do think Sabertooth Mauler is definitely better there. This will be an interesting pick because we can take Cultivate that ramps us into our big creatures and stuff, but we already have 2 Llanowar Visionaries and we're still at that point where we don't have big creatures. We've got just this Gnarled Sage. I think I'm at the point now where I need to make sure at the very least that I actually have some big creatures. So we're going to start taking the Colossal Dreadmaws once we see them because we're nearing the halfway mark in the draft. Once we're on pick 8, pack 2, I think we'll be at the halfway mark. I think we want to make sure that we have some big drops. Cultivate might be the better pick. Just have another ramp card ready. I'm starting to get concerned that we may never see Dreadmaws later. I don't know, how concerned should I be? You know what? I'm taking Cultivate. We're going to go with the definitely more risky pick because I think it's just more exciting that way. But now that we took a Cultivate over Dreadmaw and we have 3 very nice ramp spells as well as a Fierce Empath to search for our big stuff, we really need to take the 6 mana strong cards highly. And for that reason, while Bone Pit Brute is not the strongest of the big beefy cards you can ramp into, it's a decent big beefy card that you can ramp into, and we definitely want some of those. So I'm going to take Bone Pit Brute here. Bolthound is very good, but not really for our strategy. We're going for big chonkers. And this is just a little one. Ooh, this is going to be a pretty easy Soul Sear. It's just a really good removal spell. 3 mana for 5 damage at instant speed to a creature or planeswalker. So if we run up against the Teferi again, like we ran up against 2 Teferis last draft, we can just shoot that the second it shows up and not worry about it, so that would be great. It can also kill indestructible things, so if we run up against a Brash Taunter, that'll give us a way to actually kill it, and it's pretty much the only way in red or green that you can kill a Brash Taunter. So that's really nice. Brash Taunter is like a 5 mana indestructible 1/1 that deals damage to your opponent whenever it's dealt damage. Really brutal card. It is a rare though, so you don't run up against it a whole lot. Wow, this is gonna be a hard pick because Scorching Dragonfire is a really good removal spell, but Garruk's Uprising is just so strong in a deck with a lot of power 4 or greater creatures. Really good combo with stuff like Gnarled Sage too, because then you can start triggering Gnarled Sage's Vigilance pretty consistently. I think I'm going to take Garruk's Uprising. Maybe Scorching Dragonfire is the better pick, but we already do have 1 Soul Seer and 1 Hunter's Edge for removal, so we have 2 removal spells, and they both do more than 3 damage, so we have like big, good removal. I'd like to get some more card advantage here with Garruk's Uprising and Furious Rise. We're going to start trying to draw a lot of stuff. In this pack, I'm going to take Titanic Ogre. We definitely want more power 4 or greater creatures to combo with our power 4 or greater cards like Furious Rise and Garruk's Uprising that I just mentioned. And Titanic Growth would be fine in a green deck with a lot of creatures, just a green-red deck with a lot of creatures, sorry. But we're really looking for our power 4 or greater creatures now. I would love to consistently trigger our Uprising and Rise. I think I'm going to take another Cultivate in this pack, and now we really have ramp at the ready. 2 Llanowar Visionary, 2 Cultivate. We're ready for the 6 drops. We have a whole nother pack to open up, so if we just open like a big uncommon red or green creature, maybe the big dragon that costs 7 mana, maybe the big tree folk that costs 6 mana, that will be an easy Windmill Slam first pick in the next pack because we've got tons of ramp now. So I'm very much set up for success if we open the right cards in the last pack. That is the only problem. All right, Colossal Dreadmaw wheeled. That makes me so happy. That makes me very validated with the way I picked. I don't even remember what I picked over the Dreadmaw. I think it was Cultivate. I picked Cultivate over the Dreadmaw, but it was 100% correct because now we have both of the cards in our deck, and I'm very happy with that. I think I'd prefer a Ranger's Guile over a Crash Through. Most of our big threats are going to have some kind of evasiveness or trample, like these guys have Menace, and Dreadmaw already has trample, and Garruk's Uprising gives all our stuff trample. Whereas Ranger's Guile could counter a removal spell at a really opportune time. Say I play a Dreadmaw on turn 7, and I have, 1 green floating, and then they just play something that destroys any creature. I could respond with Ranger's Guile, make sure my big old 6/6 trample stays on the board. Ranger's Guile is definitely good when you have a lot of really big creatures that you want to protect. So not a huge fan of how this final pack has gone so far. We do have double Cultivate. We do have double Cultivate and a Bloodfell Caves now, thanks to that pack that only had 3 cards left. So I could literally just take a Finishing Blow and just splash in a Finishing Blow by putting like 1 Swamp in this deck. So I guess I can do that instead of one of these relatively weak green cards. Shock is pretty good. It's pretty okay, but I think I'd rather have the removal that can just destroy anything. So I guess I'll splash in a Finishing Blow. That's one of the powerful things in Cultivate. It makes it really easy to just put 1 random off-color basic land in your deck for splashing things. Because now with 2 Cultivate and 1 Swamp, we'll have 4 black sources in this deck. We have Bloodfell Caves, Swamp, and 2 Cultivate. That's 4 total. So we can easily splash in Finishing Blow. Now this pack is sweet. This pack is loaded. I would love another Garruk's Uprising a whole bunch, but Scavenging Ooze is just a really powerful card. 2 mana for a 2/2 for 1 green mana, you exile any card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on the Ooze and you gain 1 life. So if creatures are dying in the early game, this can get really big, really fast, really scary card, really good if your opponent is milling or drawing and discarding or any of that stuff, or just really good if you have early removal or creatures. Now, we don't have a lot of that going on, but even so, Scavenging Ooze is just a heck of a powerful card. Just a ton of potential off of that. It looks like we might not see a lot in terms of high mana cost cards. We might have to resort to just keeping our Bone Pit Brutes in our decks as our high mana cost cards to ramp into because we're not getting a whole lot in our colors here. So that is mildly unfortunate, but I think it's still, overall, we'll be okay. We'll be okay even if we don't get any better cards to ramp into. Now we can take a Scorching Dragonfire. Scorching Dragonfire, however, is not really much of a combo with this Scavenging Ooze we just got, since it's going to exile whatever it kills. Shock would be actually better than Dragonfire, in my opinion, right now, just because that Scavenging Ooze that I really want to work with. I suppose I could grab another 4-power creature. I am really looking for those, but I mean, it's probably the removal spell. We have a Soul Seer, we have a Hunter's Edge, and a Finishing Blow splashed in now. We don't really need a Dragonfire. Yeah, it's probably still Dragonfire. Dragonfire's just so good. And we are really... yeah, we're just not getting any big stuff as much as I would love it. Just take a little Truffle Snout, another Bone Pit Brute. We can get as many Bone Pit Brutes as we want, so there's that going for us. I don't think I won any more Bone Pit Brutes, though. Hey, we got a Canopy Stalker later instead. I will throw that in here. I'm looking for more 4-power things. I am definitely throwing a Temple of Malady in here. That's a really good fixing card to help us splash this Finishing Blow. Again, we're just going to throw 1 Swamp into this deck, and we're set to cast a Finishing Blow with a double Cultivate and now 2 black sources. There's a Shock. I was looking for that to go with our Scavenging Ooze, get things to die early game. Really nice. Dilophosaur was worth considering there, since we are a power 4 or greater deck, and oh my god, Garruk's Uprising wheeled. I was not expecting this to wheel. I thought maybe Jungle Hollow would wheel, and then we'd get another green-black mana source, which would be super nice, but then we just got the Temple anyway, and it wheeled. So Garruk's Uprising wheeled. We're putting that right into this deck. We're all in. Power 4 or greater team, assemble. I've got to cut a lot of cards out of this deck. I think this deck looks really nice, potentially. But I did think that that red-black deck that we drafted in the first draft was was super sweet too, and if you've seen the video, you've seen how it ended up. Obviously, I do talk about my past drafts in my videos, so if you don't want spoilers, I would recommend watching them in order. They are all numbered based on when I drafted them. Apparently, I already have 4 copies of one of these things. That's impressive. Okay, maybe it was the temple. Freaking always got the temples, always got to craft temples to make your Golgari decks and all that nonsense. So I have to cut 8 cards out of this deck. I don't think I'm cutting any lands with this deck, because I do have big stuff. I'm ramping into big things. I've got cultivates, I've got tons of stuff that cares about grabbing lands and all that. So I just don't think I'm cutting lands. Probably cutting some 3-drops. Definitely not cutting any creatures with 4 power either. Let's see, maybe a Truffle Snout can get out of here. Definitely not cutting Rada. Fierce Empath is definitely staying in. Sure Strike doesn't seem right for this deck. Maybe not even Ranger's Guile for that reason. Like, we're not super looking for pumps, I don't think. We can take out the Track Down. I think it's okay to just not have a lot of 2-drops in this deck because the late game is so potentially powerful. Maybe I can just cut a land because I have double Llanowar Visionary and double Cultivate. I'm not 100% certain on that, though. I don't know how I feel about that. I probably am okay cutting 1 Bone Pit Brute. They're not my most exciting big cards. So how many power 4 or greater creatures do I have to trigger Uprising right now? I currently have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, well, for that reason, Bone Pit Brute, you're back in. That's unfortunate. All of my power 4 or greater is pretty expensive. Did not manage to get any Onaki Ogres. That's really surprising. I wonder if there were a lot in the draft and I just chose other things over them. I feel like I usually see Onaki Ogres everywhere. That's 2 and a red for a 4/2 Ogre. Really weird. I feel like Garruk's Uprising in general is more powerful than Furious Rise because you're drawing a card the second you play it and it gives all your stuff trample, and you're full on drawing the card instead of having to play specifically that card in your next turn. So I kind of like going to just the 2 Garruk's Uprising and not the Furious Rise. Now, there are situations where Furious Rise is more powerful. Furious Rise is obviously more powerful if you have a 4-power creature currently on board and you're just not drawing into any more 4-power creatures. This is better because this is just going to keep giving you cards no matter what. Whereas Garruk's Uprising, you have to keep playing power 4 or greater creatures, but Garruk's Uprising also just gives your whole field trample on top of stuff. It also lets you draw the card even if they kill your 4-power creature immediately. I think the trade-off is fine. I think Uprising is still a little better, so we'll stick to the 2 Uprising minus 1 Furious Rise. I just need to cut 1 more card in this deck. I'm going to turn that card style off right now because it's really irritating me. I was heavily considering cutting Scorching Dragonfire just so I didn't have to look at that card style, but then I remembered that you can just turn it off. I don't have any huge qualms with the card styles. I just don't like it when my deck isn't uniform. If all of my cards are not a card style, then I don't want 1 or 2 random card styles. Or if most of my cards are card styles, then I would want the whole thing to be card styles. So I still gotta cut 1 more card, or I could use the 41 card special that everybody hates. You know what? You know what I think I'm about to do? I think it's time for the 41 card special. The deck is complete. 41 card Jund 'em out special. Let's go. We're not really Jund, but we're Jund in spirit. We're splashing in a single removal spell. That is the only black card in this deck, but that's okay. Jund in spirit is Jund enough to Jund 'em out. Have I said Jund enough? Jund is black, red, green, if you don't know. Alright. This hand is not very good. It's a little awkward. Just because we have 2 6-drops and we don't even have the second red mana to cast them. Oh, I mean, now this hand's unbeatable. Come on. Okay. We have drawn our 6th red mana, but it is still a little bit of an awkward hand just because we're not doing a lot in the early game here. We're just trying to ramp into our big late game plays and hope it works out. Opponent didn't play anything on turn 2, so that's helpful. Llanowar Visionary on turn 3. I like the play. I can respect that, opponent. That's a good card you got there. I'm going to save this Bloodfell Caves. That way I can attack with Llanowar Visionary right now. There's no way they block. Oh my god. Oh my god, maybe I should not have done that. No, I'm kidding. I knew it was coming. Even if they blocked, that's still the right play because we trade Visionaries and then Mauler comes out as a 4-4 instead of a 3-3. The only awkward thing about that play is it makes it so I can't play Bone Pit Brute this turn, but I do have the tap land to play this turn instead. And now I've gotten that out of the way. So I think that attack was definitely right because they were very unlikely to block. And even if they blocked, at least I got a counter out of it. Overall, I still would have preferred to still have my Llanowar Visionary out so I could drop the Bone Pit Brute a turn earlier. But it's not exactly like them blocking made things like blow up in my face or anything. It's just not ideal. And Radha is such a great draw, but I'm not going to play her. I'm going to play Bone Pit Brute first, because we're going to get in for 8 damage, or they chump block with their rare kitty they just got. Feline Sovereign doesn't do a whole lot this game. Sure, it's rare, but it's not that scary. On the current board, it's not scary at all, but I do have 2 enchantments in my deck that I would really prefer they do not destroy. And those are 2 Garruk's Uprising. So if I draw into one of those, then I'll be very scared of this cat. But as it stands right now, kind of just a 2-3. So 6 mana for our opponent and 5 cards in hand. It's definitely got a lot of options. Colossal Dreadmaw it is. No attacks. Alright, as cool as Radha would be, I think we're just tripling up on Bone Pit Brutes. Just play another Bone Pit Brute this turn, and then next turn we get to play a Bone Pit Brute and Radha. I guess we don't. We only have 2 mana more than we need for the Bone Pit Brute. So pump the Bone Pit Brute. It now has 8 power. So it trades for Tide Skimmer and Feline Sovereign, or it trades for Colossal Dreadmaw. Either way, I'm fine with the trade, because it'll put a counter on my Mauler, and I have 2 more Bone Pit Brutes coming. One of them is out on the board already, just not quite ready to attack. The other one is chilling in my hand. The other is chilling in defense mode. Truffle Snout. 3-3. Alright, well, now they can double block this Bone Pit Brute with those 2. Oh my god, Scorching Dragonfire is going to shut that right off. And I have enough mana to Bone Pit Brute and Scorching Dragonfire. Evil. Absolutely evil. So if I Bone Pit Brute, put the power onto the Bone Pit Brute, that forces the double block, because that's 8 damage. They have to stop the 8 damage or they're dead. Ooh, or they've got a Capture Sphere. Well, that's pretty rude, too. Not as evil as my plan was. I guess we're just sending in the Sabertooth Mauler. Then they could double block this, too, but if they do that, my evil plan stands. Just this time, they don't take a bunch of damage. I will still eat all of their blockers and get a +1 counter, and that is too much for them. They are very over it. I know I would have been mad. Alright, heading into the next round. Yeah, that was it's a pretty cruel game there. God, this hand is awkward. This is what happens every time I splash something in. I just draw 1 color every game. Game 1 I drew all 3 of my colors, but I was a little worried with the only 1 mountain for my double reds. How would I keep this hand, you know? I got Scavenging Ooze into Garruk's Uprising. If I draw a mountain, this hand's incredible. If I draw a swamp, this hand's pretty good, because then I'm 1 mana away from finishing blow on anything. Ooh, Temple of Malady is really good too. However, I'm going to play the Ooze first, so I actually have a creature on this board. Ooze is totally just going to get shot by some kind of red burn spell, but that's okay. Or, surprise, it's not. So if I Temple of Malady, I can scry and see what's coming, but if I want to go all in here, I could just play a swamp and hope that the top is a mountain. I like that. If the top is a mountain, what am I doing? I was supposed to cast Garruk's Uprising there. That's why you play the untapped land. Play the untapped land, play Garruk's Uprising, then if the top's a mountain, you Turret Ogre and draw a card. But I actually just did the worst of both plays. I could have had Garruk's Uprising out right now. But yeah, the worst part of Temple of Malady is I wouldn't be playing a card that turn, and the worst part of Swamp was I would not know what was on top of my library, and I actually just accomplished both in one fell swoop. So I guess now we're Garruk's Uprising Temple of Malady, and we're still trying to win the long game via value of drawing cards off Turret Ogre and Bone Pit Brute and all that. But wow, that was awkward. I stone cold forgot the whole reason I played the Swamp the moment it hit the battlefield. So it did turn out that the play I made was pretty correct in hindsight. In playing the Swamp, I just... I don't know what happened. I just blanked on playing Garruk's Uprising. You know, maybe I just really wanted to exile the Crash Through in their grave. There's an argument for that. It's a bad argument, but it's there. Maybe they'd have the thing that returns an instant or sorcery from their grave to their hand. Crash Through can be a scary card. It really is not right now, though, so... I don't know. I'm just going to try and justify my bad life decisions, as I usually do. Alright, Jeskai Elder. 1-2 with Prowess. Get in here, join the fight. Ooh, another Garruk's Uprising? Huh. Do I want to really win the long game, or do I want to start putting threats on this board? I think I gotta just start putting threats on this board, right? At this point, I just did nothing and played Garruk Uprising last turn, so... Am I just all in on being stupid now? Maybe. I mean, nah, Turret Ogre's gotta be the best play. Oh my god, we're gonna draw so many cards, it's ridiculous. Some big, scary brutes, too. I can't get over... Imagine how incredible of a position we would be in right now if I actually just cast Garruk's Uprising on turn 3 instead of skipping through my turn. Rousing Reed. That's really, really nice on something that has a good ability when it deals combat damage to a player. Jeskai Elder, of course, when it does combat damage to a player, allows them to draw a card and discard a card, so that's really nice on Jeskai Elder. Probably going to go ahead and Finishing Blow that. Unfortunately, I don't have enough mana to play Garruk's Uprising and Finishing Blow, but that would be cool. Discard a creature? No, of course they didn't discard a creature. No one wants to let the Skoos grow. Skoos is the best. I do have a Turret Ogre, which does have Reach, though, and I forgot. My opponent did not, because they considered not attacking here, so... I would have noticed the second they attacked. Obviously, it highlights the Turret Ogre. All big. So, there's that. Alright, well, show me the non-creature spell. They don't have it. So the reason I made that block is they considered like not attacking for so long that I was just convinced they didn't have a non-creature spell, because if they did, they would just slam that attack in. So, plus, trading there, if they did not have the non-creature spell, is so good, because now my Skoos starts getting counters. Yeah, I mean, it's a big boy now. So let's start bashing our opponent. 7 damage. Down to 11. We have a really good hand. Our opponent does have 6 cards, though, so they could have a really good hand as well, but I have a really good hand and a really good field. So I believe the game is in our favor. I mean, if their hand is just like Chandra Garruk Teferi or something, then it's definitely not. But for now, Scavenging Ooze is really going to take over this game, too, because now I don't even need to play a creature this turn. I can just focus on making this big enough to screw over their Turret Ogre on blocks. And I'm probably just going to attack with it this turn, too. Gain some life and then attack with it. Because now I have enough mana to save up this Finishing Blow if they do something really scary. If they don't do anything really scary, we'll just Finishing Blow Turret Ogre. I could have also cast Garruk's Uprising this turn. They are going to Enthralling Hold our Scavenging Ooze. That'll gain control of it permanently. I'm going to have to destroy my own Scavenging Ooze, because, I mean, it's going to be a 5/5 on their field, and it'll just keep getting bigger when more things die. So if I Finishing Blow Turret Ogre, it'll be a 6/6 on their field, and they'll gain a life off it. Where's a Village Rites when you need one? That would be fantastic here. I guess I'm destroying my own Scavenging Ooze. Feels really bad. That's how powerful cards that control things like Enthralling Hold are. It 2-for-1s your opponent at minimum and very easily can lead into a 3-for-1. Like it just did. I spent Finishing Blow and Scavenging Ooze when all they spent was Enthralling Hold. Ooh, not that. We want a Garruk's Uprising first, so I draw 2 cards. Bazam! What you gonna do now? I'm gonna have a lot of cards. That's what I'm gonna do. So Gnarled Sage was a really good draw because it was a 4-power creature that I could cast for cheap enough to also cast Garruk's Uprising first and draw some cards off of it. We're taking the trade here. They've got 5 cards in hand. What do they have? Hellkite Punisher. Definitely want to Hunter's Edge that. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. Do I have enough mana to do that? I don't think I do. I think I just die to that. I think I actually just die to that. That attacks for 9 in the air. I don't have any reach. That is insane. Yeah, so Bone Pit Brute would be... I'd have 2 mana up. I'm 1 mana away from having enough to Hunter's Edge Hellkite Punisher. That sucks so bad. Oh my god. Oh no. So, turns out casting absolutely nothing on turn 3 may have cost me this game. If I draw just lands, it definitely cost me this game. What a phenomenally sad way to lose. In the grand scheme of things, and we definitely deserved it. The turn 3 plays were abysmal on my end. I feel like in terms of drafting and like deck power though, my deck has 100% deserved that win. I just failed it in the gameplay round. So that feels pretty awful. Definitely sucks when you misplay hard. And it's not even like a conscious kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like the kind of conscious kind of misplay that I would end up playing in an IRL draft. It's just the kind of thing that happens when I'm multitasking and trying to discuss all my plays and stuff and be entertaining and stuff. It definitely is a lot more of an occurrence on Arena than in a real life draft. It's much easier to just instinctually spam through a turn on a computer program than just be like, I will pass my turn now, when you don't want to. No Johns, though. That was pretty horrific gameplay for me. And I am disappointed in myself. So now we're playing against a red-white deck. Not off to a really aggressive start. That Double Striker's pretty scary, but this Hunter's Edge should be able to deal with that pretty soon. We get to cultivate into one of our 6 drops next turn. That's really nice. Let's throw a forest onto the field and a swamp into our hand. Yep, forest on the field, swamp to hand. If they have removal, this will be a pretty scary start. Here comes a Makeshift Battalion. That's frightening, because if they attack with Makeshift Battalion alongside their creatures, it starts getting +1/+1 counters. So down to 16. Now the Siege Striker could potentially hit for 6 by itself, but if they attack with everything and don't tap stuff, they also just hit me for 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I guess they hit for 7 if they do it that way. It's probably their best play. We'll drop a Swamp, drop a Dreadmaw, draw a card. Just our highest toughness blocker. Scavenging Ooze could be good if Dreadmaw survives and starts blocking things. But if they pacify our Dreadmaw, if they exile our Dreadmaw, if they do any of that, Scavenging Ooze is not really good right now. It does allow us to play a creature and Hunter's Edge in the same turn, so we can actually kill something immediately instead of having to block it. It does have that going for it. Anointed Chorister. And an Alpine Watchdog, okay. If they attack with Siege Striker, they can attack with it as like a pretty big double striker that would just trade with Dreadmaw. 4/4 double striker, so I take 8 or I trade Dreadmaw into Siege Striker. With a Scavenging Ooze in hand, that's actually fine. Because now this Ooze is going to get bigger. I'll Hunter's Edge something next turn to make their field smaller. I'll gain life off of this. Thrashing Brontodon as well. Let's probably Hunter's Edge first. What do we want to kill? They have 3 mana. They need 5 mana to pump the Chorister. I probably want to kill the Battalion first. The Flyer's scary, but it only does 1 damage a turn, and I can gain a life a turn off Ooze for a little bit, at least. And I do have multiple cards with Reach, so I probably want to just stop the biggest threat. Plus Scavenging Ooze would end up being a 4/4. Makeshift Battalion would attack as a 4/4 if they attack with 3 or more creatures. Well, it would attack as a 4/3. Either way, it would trade with Scavenging Ooze if I tried to block with it. Ooze can block the rest of their ground troops, even with a Basri's Solidarity. Solidarity does make the Flyer a lot scarier, though. It's going to kill me twice as fast as it would have. Show me the Sure Strike, I guess. We'll see what kind of pump spell they're using to kill my Ooze here. But I have a 4/5 coming out next turn, so we want to get these pumps out of the way. Feat of Resistance, that's pretty terrible. Feat of Resistance is just a brutally powerful combat trick. Alright, here's a Bone Pit Brute. Let's draw into something. Land. Cool. Alright, looks like we're down to taking 2 a turn. They must be out of Feat of Resistance style pumps. Solemn Simulacrum coming in, grabbing a land, drawing a card when it dies. Here's another blocker with a Thrashing Brontodon. Unfortunately, now that that Pegasus got a +1/+1 counter on it, we can't kill it with the Scorching Dragonfire. So we're just going to take 2 a turn until we die, currently. Even Gagglemaster, well, I could definitely kill that, and I absolutely should. Kill it before they gain extra life out of it, I guess. So they only gain 2 instead of 4. So we might as well. We're certainly killing it that turn no matter what. So now we play a Bone Pit Brute. Get to draw a card off of this, and we can do a really big trampling attack this turn. Just 8 Menace Trample damage. We get to draw a card off of Llanowar Visionary as well. Let's just soak up all this value. Get in there, 8/5. So they can block with Chorister and Watchdog. They'll still take 2 trample damage. Looks like there's no blocks at all. Chorister does attack as a 5/5 lifelink now, because it has that +1/+1 counter on it. Gale Swooper's pretty disastrous. They hit us for 6 in the air this turn, and we're dead on turn next turn. We're dead on board next turn, sorry. Because then they attack for 5. Flying is currently on their field. Another Bone Pit Brute. Okay, I mean, all our stuff has trample. They have 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We'll add 2 because of lifelink. They can stop 12 damage. We currently have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 damage. So we can do 1 damage. With Bone Pit Brute, we can do 5. So that's a yikes. I suppose because these both have Menace, they can't stop that much damage. Even Brontodon something away. I think I have to just draw into something here. Shock? Does that do it? I don't think it does. I suppose it depends on how they block now. Everything has trample, so I can wait to shock until after they block. I'm just gonna go for it. But I could also just play defensively and sit here and just shock the 3/2 flyer, because then they can't like attack into my stuff super well, but then I go to 2, and I have to draw an answer to the flyer immediately still. I feel like it's better to give them this chance to possibly misplay. We possibly kill them that way. Even if they don't misplay, like if they block correctly, they lose basically their whole field. So we don't have to worry about the crackback from anything other than the flyers. So this is going to be... If I shock the Chorister, that's more damage than shocking their face. Because if I shock the Chorister, I then do 4 to that and 4 to them. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8... 9, 10, 11. 11 is not lethal. So we don't shock the Chorister. We're going to have to shock the Gale Swooper then. Alright. And I'm not going to sack the Brontodon either. So yeah. If we couldn't do lethal that turn, we have to shock a Gale Swooper. Because obviously we take 5 in the air if I don't shock the Gale Swooper. And I should shock it right now before they have mana to play a bigger pump spell. Like a Feat of Resistance. If they have a Feat of Resistance, that would have killed me if I waited till their turn. If they just have everything, I'm dead. Well, that's brutal. That's a Daybreak Charge. Would give +2 power to their flyer, putting me to exactly 0. Literally, if they didn't have a way to pump spell that turn, they were super dead on my next swing. Absolutely brutal drafts to start off my Core Set 2021 experience. The first one, I drafted a pretty cool looking deck. I do think my first deck was definitely worse than this one. I think this deck's pretty sick, but we're still getting destroyed in these games. I mean, like, look at this hand. How is this not a sick deck? Look at that. However, like, one of my losses in this draft was definitely due to gameplay errors. I haven't done the math to, like, 100% know that I would have won if I actually cast Garruk's Uprising turn 3 in my first round, but I feel like that probably would have happened. We got really close to killing them, even skipping a turn for no reason. Alright, we're going to start with a Llanowar Visionary in this game, because it can ramp us into playing Gnarled Sage next turn. If I was just going to draw into a 4-mana, 4-power creature, like if I knew Canopy Stalker was on top of my library, I would have played Garruk's Uprising first. That way I draw a card off of that when I play that this turn. But instead I'll probably just Cultivate and save up a... well, not Cultivate. Garruk's Uprising, save up a Shock this turn, because I still want to get Uprising out as soon as possible to draw a card every time I do something. They have a 3/4 and a 1/3 out. Yeah, we're not under immense pressure. I think I can afford to Uprising. Like, otherwise I'm just playing a Sage without drawing a card. Or I'm playing, like... Cultivate seems pretty incorrect here. I'm just going to drop an Uprising and pass. Cultivate would set me up for a future turn where I could, like, drop 2 things in one turn, but I already can afford everything in my hand if I'm just dropping 1 card a turn. Alright, so they're not gaining any life off the Crypt Lurker, not spending that 5 mana into Vito's ability, so means they have other stuff to play. Looks like a Walking Corpse and a Walking Corpse. Come on in, zombies. I'm going to go ahead and just shock one of those. I'm going to be spending all of my mana pretty much every turn for the rest of this game, most likely. So I'm not going to have a lot of time to have Shock held up. So I can cultivate, put a land into play tapped, and then play an untapped land to play Rada or Thrashing Brontodon. Thrashing Brontodon would be the best blocker here out of those. But I could also just play a Gnarled Sage, which can block and kill Crypt Lurker. I think I want to start off with this Gnarled Sage. Nice, and we drew into a land. Very good. It's going to let me start playing extra cards. By extra, I just mean more than one per turn. And here's the finishing blow. Taking 6. Definitely under some pressure here, but I still think we're in a good spot to stabilize. Now I can Rada into Hunter's Edge. Don't have the mana to Canopy Stalker into Hunter's Edge, but I could also Thrashing Brontodon into it. In case they have another removal spell, I think that's a little bit better. I've got a big old blocker for their stuff. Let's see if they have another removal spell. Certainly hope not. Just a Blood Glutton for now. Definitely acceptable. Brontodon now has 5 toughness, so it can block Blood Glutton well. I can Bone Pit Brute here. I don't think I want to do that, though. I think I'd rather Canopy Stalker and Rada, or Canopy Stalker and Cultivate. Either of those I can afford to do. We'll see based on what we draw. Another Bone Pit Brute. Probably just going to put Rada on the board then. I have enough mana to afford these Bone Pit Brutes, even without tapping my Llanowar Visionary in future turns. So let's just start overwhelming this board presence. And then Rada with First Strike and Trample should be incredibly hard to beat. Because Garruk's Uprising gives her Trample. She gives herself First Strike. So we're going to have First Strike, Trample, 7 power creature here. It is impossible for them to block and kill Rada. Because if they block with everything, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I can kill all these off First Strike damage and they do 1. So, yeah, this is just brutal. And we're going to follow it up with another Bone Pit Brute after this. If I attack with Canopy Stalker, like, it does have to be blocked, so I do get to trade with something, but I'm just trading with a 2/2 if I do that. So they're just going to go ahead and take the 7, because they don't have good blocks, and they don't have good chump blocks either, since Trample is a thing. Pretty sure I've got this game under lock. The card advantage from the Garruk's Uprising allowing me to commit threats to the board while still drawing gas, like Dragonfire, to keep myself safe, is pretty big. Veto could potentially just out of nowhere deal the final 12 to me, though, because I will be taking a damage every time they do that. I don't know what this attack means. Probably Death Touch. Just block with my 2/2. Probably +1/+1 Death Touch or something. Or they actually have like a Rise Again to bring it back from the grave. So yeah, with Veto, as soon as they have 11 power on the board, I'm just dead. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They have 10 power on board right now. So I'm not quite dead to it. So I definitely need to Scorching Dragonfire on Veto. And now I can even Scavenging Ooze the Archfiend's Vessel. So I can stop them from whatever kind of weird Rise from the grave nonsense they were trying to do. Yeah, I'm going to go with the safest plays here. Let's just shoot Veto so I can't die to that. Scavenging Ooze. Exile this Archfiend thing, so I don't have to worry about the random 5/5 flyer things coming in. I got 3 more mana. I guess we just Cultivate this turn. I could have made like a really aggressive attack this turn. I should have... Actually, no, I have a Temple of Malady. I don't need the Swamp. Yeah, I could have made another really aggressive attack this turn with Bone Pit Brute nonsense. But I think this is just a really safe play that basically confirms I just win like next turn instead. They're at 14 life with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, Roman Ghostlight definitely sucks. Now I don't win this turn, probably. Yeah, Rada is definitely the correct choice. She would be very massive if I use her ability. Alright, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They have 9 toughness and 4 lifelink. So they have 13 13 over there against my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 minus 13 is 4, plus 4 is 8. 8 is not lethal, so we're not going to do a crazy big attack this turn. Alright, another Cultivate, so I can just play Rada, land off the top, Cultivate. Could actually even play the Bone Pit Brute, but since I'm not attacking this turn, I'll just save it for next. Maybe I do attack with Skoos. See, 2 cards in their grave, 1 in mine. So Skoos is a 7/7 basically. I'm just gonna save it again. I feel like I probably should be attacking here, but the math is like so muddied up that I want to wait until I just know that I have a lethal attack, which is definitely next turn. I guess if they have like darkness, if they have the black fog, that would kill me if I just Alpha Strike this turn, but otherwise pretty sure an Alpha Strike this turn is immensely lethal. I even have enough mana to Bone Pit Brute and use Rada's thingamabob. So I'll even have a blocker up for this. Yeah, I mean, this is tremendously lethal. Oh! Oh! Oh my god! Oh no! Oh no! Oh, I would have been really mad if I lost to that. Oh my god, there was something in the format that would do that. Holy lord. Oh. My heart has skipped like 12 beats. Oh my god. They just straight up ended the turn. They're like, nah. That didn't happen. Almost just 1-3'd into that. Oh my god. Well, now I'll remember that for the future because I had that game very locked down if I just sat there and kept doing safe little pingy attacks. So I very much should have just been doing that. Oh my god. Well, welcome back to Draft 2 of the worst. Of course, that 2021 drafter right here. I hope you're enjoying yourselves. I am, I certainly am. 2, 3, 4, 5. I will have 6 mana with a Visionary on board, so I'll just drop the land to the bottom. I hope they play like a Spell Gorger weird, because I would love to just shock that thing while they don't have mana to play a non-creature spell. Oh, it's not a Spell Gorger weird. Ooh, Tyrannodon. Not a bad card. Come on out, Llanowar Visionary. Join the party. Now we drew a Cultivate as well. I could Cultivate and Tyrannodon next turn. So I already have a 6-drop in hand with this Bone Pit Brute, so I can save Fierce Empath for my follow-up to Bone Pit Brute. Let's play a Tyrannodon. Any response? Nope. Cultivate. Just really getting this mana all kinds of ready. Beep. Boop. Already got my black mana, so I don't want to pick up a swamp. Put a forest into play, mountain into hand. A Goblin Wizardry. So I'm very, very glad that I didn't choose to play Fierce Empath and attack, because I don't want to lose my Visionary. I suppose with a Cultivate I would still be really close to 6 mana. But if I played Fierce Empath, I wouldn't have played Cultivate that turn, so I'd be on 5 mana this turn. I wouldn't have enough for Bone Pit Brute. My Llanowar Visionary would be dead. That would have been really bad. So that was a really nice play. They cast a Experimental Overload to return the Goblin Wizardry from their grave to their hands. That's pretty powerful. Play a Bone Pit Brute. Just make Tyrannodon terrifying this turn, I guess. They're just gonna take 7 damage, so they're planning on some kind of big, crazy prowess tricks, probably. Crack back at me for a lot. If they don't, I just trade for a 2/2 and a 1/1 right now. Definitely have a plan for these tokens. Oh, maybe it was just for a better block this turn, because they're going to get prowess and get 2 more 1/1s here. I have a Scorching Dragonfire and a Shock, so I think my attacks are still relatively safe. That'll be 2 2/2s. They'll have 3 2/2s and 2 1/1s minimum. If they have Goblin Wizardry and just like one other instant, like an Opt or something, that's insane. Because then they have a 2/2, 2 3/3s, and 2 2/2s to block with. Oh my lord. I don't even know what's right here. Well, we're definitely going to Fierce Empath, but I'm probably just going to wait till post-combat for that. I have a Shock and a Scorching Dragonfire. Let's see what that does for me. Gotta deal with the nonsense at some point. They're gonna block with 3. Oh my god. I want to kill 2 of these things so bad. But if I Shock and they have a non-creature thing, I've spent a Shock to do nothing. I'm gonna... I have to do both of these or nothing, and that's it. It is pausing during their turn, so there's absolutely no way I'm throwing a Shock at this too. They're going to counter it unless I pay 1? That's actually perfect. Oh my god, that worked out so well for me. That worked out so well for me. Oh my god. Worst Core Set 2021 limited player accidentally makes incredibly good attack. Shock Dragonfire, thank you so much. They're at 9, so I'd actually rather... I mean, they've got little 1/1 tokens, though. Probably rather have the Dreadmaw just because of stupid 1/1 tokens. I was considering getting a Brute just to give a +4 to something on attacks next turn. Just get really aggro with it. But I mean, hopefully that whole weird trade put things in my favor a bit. Enthralling Hold is not fun. Don't play that. It's just not a fun Magic card. Don't like it when you take my stuff. Would greatly appreciate you giving that back. Oh my god! Accidentally just draw a Thrashing Brontodon. I'm so good at this game. At least today. In this draft. Here's my Dreadmaw that I already revealed. I can wait to destroy the Enthralling Hold until they untap my Bone Pit Brute. I guess once it changes control, though, it's sick again. So maybe I should have Brontodoned right now, but I don't know. Oh my god, they're just gonna go to 4? They plan on killing me here? Please don't. Do 21 damage out of nowhere. I'd appreciate it. Please and thank you. 3 cards in hand, 2 1/1 prowess on board, and a 4/5 menace, and here's a Havoc Gesture. Havoc Gesture means they're very likely to have Sacrifice Outlets in their deck somewhere, so better Thrashing Brontodon right now before they draw into Sacrifice Outlet. Give me back my Brute. Thank you. Get your 5/5 off this board, and they scoop them up. That was another really good draw. I just went runner on incredible draws that game. This deck has a lot of really spicy cards in it. That was very nice. 3 wins and 2 losses. We've made it to average. This deck deserved no less, even if I tried really hard to 0-3 with it, just with how I've been playing this draft. Whew. I think the drafting portion, the deck building itself, worked out pretty great, even if the gameplay has been loose. to say the least. All right, 3 wins and 2 losses. We'll see if we can keep adding some more wins to this, but first loss that we get, we're out. I'm going to keep this hand. I just need to scry into a single land, and then I'll have all the mana I need for the rest of this game, thanks to this Cultivate. Definitely going to throw the 6-drop on the bottom of my library. 100% not what I'm needing. Against a white-black deck that starts off with a Daybreak Charger. Pretty scary, and I draw Scorching Dragonfire, which is not castable right now. I don't have any red mana. It would have been a great draw if that forest were a mountain instead. Unfortunately, it's not. The scry did not hit a land. Literally all I need to hit is 1 land. And I'm in this game, but if I don't hit that land like next turn, starting with a 2-mana 3/1 into a 3-mana 3/1 is gonna just kill me. Discard the Bone Pit Brute here. Down to 11. And a Mangara the Diplomat. And we draw a second Cultivate to taunt us. Really, really sad way to end this draft, but I think... I mean, if it happened again, I would still keep this hand. Like, it's 1 land away from casting literally everything that's in my hand now. Because I cultivate into 2 lands that I can cast my 4-drops and 5-drops, whatever. My Scorching Dragonfire to get rid of these 3/1s. Just really unfortunate draws. We were 1 land away from it. 50% of our deck is now lands. We have got 17 lands in this deck, 15 land, 15 non-land. We had a scry before our first draw. We were on the draw, so we even got to draw before our opponent. There's our land, but it is too little too late, and that will end my second Premier Draft of Core Set 2021. Definitely not the note you want to leave it on, but it's a certain... it's certainly a part of the Magic the Gathering and the limited experience. So, maybe, I don't know. Obviously, knowing what I drew, I would have mulliganed if I knew that all those cards were on top, but I still don't know if it's, like, incorrect to keep that hand. I feel like it's correct. With no knowledge of what's on top of the deck, I feel like it's correct. Like, statistically, by the time you draw land for that. I don't know. That might be something I just, like, screenshot and send to LSV or Marshall Sutcliffe or somebody and be like, do you mull this? I don't know. I've watched a lot of LSV drafts, though, and he definitely keeps greedier hands. He always does not recommend it, though, so I feel like LSV would not have mulled that, but either way, that is going to end today's draft. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon for some more Magic Arena content. If you want to catch me live, I'm live every now and then on twitch.tv/GauntletX. Probably going to be a lot of Historic Brawl live, since I'm not trying to hit Mythic this month and doing all that nonsense. But if you just want to watch more drafts, more content of whatever events come up, definitely going to be doing a lot of Jumpstart. That's only about a week away at this point, I think. Something like the 15th, 16th, I don't know. I should look that up, but I'll definitely be doing a lot of Jumpstart. Definitely going to be doing a lot of Amonkhet Remastered when that shows up in August. Very excited about Amonkhet. But yeah, if you want to see all that stuff, just stick around where you are now. Subscribe, like, comment, all the good stuff, and I'll see you very soon for more Magic Arena content.